Ayanna. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Soulversations with Mka Morris. Welcome, 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 sweetheart. Welcome. How
Thank
are
you. I'm so good. Thank you, sis. It's so good to see your beautiful face. It's just good to be vibing with you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So, most people will know you, and some people don't know you. And I would love to have read your extensive bio, but I don't want us to go into a whole thing about going down all of your accolades. I want you to just give us a beautiful who you are. I want you to tell the world who Ayanna Gregory is. And thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you, sister. I really appreciate it. Ayanna Gregory, Ayanna Nkinge Gregory is a healer, an artist, an activist, an educator, a daughter, a sister, an auntie. I am one of 11 children born to two powerful spirits. My father, the late, great Dick Gregory, and my mother, who is still here, Lillian Estelle Gregory. I mention them because their influence has informed everything that I've ever done and what I continue to do. So the life work that I have chosen and that has chosen me has everything to do with the environment that I came up in. So I would say that's who I am, or at least a big part of who I am.
And yes, the 11 children thing. Everybody knows Sir Dick Gregory and Miss Lillian. You know, we've seen her in the struggle. We've seen her with her beautiful late husband. But what we don't know is that they had these 11 rambunctious kids while they was fighting for, you know, our basic rights, basically. Let's not even just talk about it being civil, just our basic rights of equality and justice in this country. And so how was that growing up in a household with all of those siblings?
It was crazy, sis. It was beautiful. It was scary. It was completely unpredictable. You know, I grew up in an environment where phone taps and death threats were normal. Now, as traumatic as that could be on the one hand, it was such a part of our life that I think because my parents didn't hide much from us, the truth kind of helped take the sting of these elements away, you know? So for instance, I remember, you know, we would always know that the phones were tapped. You know, we always, even as a child, even before I knew what the FBI was, I was like, the FBI does not like my dad. I know that, you know? And so we could always hear these click, click, clicks on the line. And sometimes we would like pretend like we were talking to them, you know? My sister would come up with little, you know, we're kids. So we engaged that really adult reality in a childlike way. So for us, you know, we said, oh, the FBI. So I remember one time my sister was like trying to be funny. And at the same time, she was annoyed because these click, click, clicks were on the line. And so she said, she was talking to her friend and she said, hold on, Tracy. Yeah, I'd like to give a special shout out to the FBI. Funky booty inspectors. So, you know, it's like from a kid's perspective, it was just like, y'all ain't got nothing better to do than to eavesdrop on some kids. And so it was exciting. It was, we lived in different worlds, you know, very different worlds. First of all, we were vegetarian.
Yes.
1970.
It's cool to be vegetarian.
I repeat, the early 1970s and early 60s. It was not cool. It was not fun. It was not anything attractive about it as a child, you know, because you just wanted to be like your peers. Nobody wanted to switch lunches with you. Everybody thought your stuff looked weird, smelled weird. And that was already on top of, you know, we in 1973, pretty much all of us, except for my older sister, were born in Chicago. In 1973, I was 2, and my youngest sibling, Johanse, was like a baby. And so my father had this idea that he was gonna raise these nature babies. So we go from city kids on the south side of Chicago, he moves us, I call it, we would laugh and say, you moved us all the way across the world. He moved us to Plymouth, Massachusetts on 300 acres of land.
And your mom is still there?
Mommy was horrified. She cried on sight. They said she just cried on sight. Because here we were, 10 Black kids. None of us could swim. And so the house was on this great big lake. And she was like, Lord, my baby's going to drown. Why did he bring us out here? I don't know nobody. And there were so few Black people in the town that they used to joke and say that when we moved there, that we integrated the town. I was like,
you did.
So there's that. So it was just a completely different world. So I lived in kind of like four different worlds. So there was my house and the siblings, and that was just, as you can imagine, as busy and as wild and as rambunctious as you can imagine. It was that and more. It was just like never a dull moment. But in my house, there was a lot of pride. My father was a revolutionary, a freedom fighter. He, part of his message and beingness was loving Blackness,
Yes.
among other things, so many other things. And so I was taught to love myself in the house. I was taught to hate myself in my school environment. I didn't see anything that looked like me, sounded like me, anything that was relatable to me in my peer environment at school. So that was a different world. So I wore a mask. I figured, well, they won't be able to understand my world, so let me just pretend to be a part of their world. So it was a lot of pretending in my childhood at school. And they had no concept of who my father was. So, so we didn't grow up in a town where we felt like celebrities, because anybody know? I mean, the adults knew, but my peers didn't know. And like, wait, Dick Gregory, what does he do? What does your dad do? So there was those two worlds in Plymouth. And then when we left home, there were 2 other worlds. There was the movement, the freedom rights, the freedom movement, the civil rights movement, the human rights movement, the spiritual movements. And all of that was like, I felt a lot of magic in that realm, because even though it was dangerous, even though we knew we could die, and we knew my father, every time he left, he might not make it home, there was something really just godlike about that space. It was really like a frequency, a vibration that was just so powerful. And I couldn't wait till I was old enough to be a part of that. So there was that world. And then there was the world of celebrity in Hollywood, because as people may not know, a lot of people know him for different things. Some people know him as a health guru. Some people know him as a comedian. Some people know him as an activist. But he started out in Hollywood, actually. And so it was almost like he was one of those many celebrities like Lena Horne and Sidney Poitier and so many others, Nina Simone, who were called on by people like Dr. King and Medgar Evers and so many others to bring attention, because they knew when the celebrities came, the cameras would follow. But they didn't, Dad didn't know that when Medgar Evers called him to go down to Mississippi, that he would really never go back to Hollywood. He thought, okay, I'm leaving my comfortable, cushy life to go march in the sticks, down in the sticks in Mississippi. And I'm gonna march and I'm gonna go back and do my gigs. But what he experienced when he was down there was so tremendous that he never returned. And so Dad lived in these 2 different worlds. He, so he took us with him. So on any given day, we might be in Louisiana or Mississippi or wherever, down south, running for our lives or marching for our lives. getting ready to go to jail or watching our father get beat down and jailed and then released. There was that world, listening to old grandmothers, sharecroppers who couldn't even read or write, listening to this rich, rich history of a people who just wanted to be seen as they actually were, as dignified royal people, right? And so, but then there was this other world that he was a part of, where where the celebrities were. And so it was a very different juxtaposition, because the interesting thing was, as much as I was excited to, meet some of the singers and celebrities that I loved, I never really felt really comfortable in that realm. And I think it was because we were really grounded as a grassroots family steeped in the movement. So it was just a very different, I moved between those four worlds and just kind of navigated
everywhere you go. It was this max for this setting, and then I'm gonna go over here where this max for that setting. I'm gonna be Dick Gregory's daughter over here. I'm gonna be Ayanna Gregory over here. I'm gonna be that Black girl over here. So that was a lot on your plate. That was a lot to deal with. So I'm gonna break up a little bit of this momentum that we have going with just a basic little, what's your favorite color, girl?
Purple.
Tell me why it's purple.
Oh my goodness. I think I grew into the knowledge of why, but as a child in fourth grade, I declared in fourth grade that purple was my favorite color for life. And it has remained thus. And so, as I've gotten older and I've heard, wow, purple is royalty, purple is spiritual, then I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
It makes sense. It was called to purple, royalty. Yes, beauty of it. So I love that we're having this conversation during Black History Month. We know Black history is every single day of our lives.
Yes, indeed.
But you pretty much answered where you were born and how it was growing up in this big family and this big, gracious, just like, we can be outsiders. Everybody feels like they know your dad, but to know you, it's like, I talk to you all the time, and it's every time I talk to you, I learn something new, and it's just a beautiful thing to talk to someone with like, you speak not only from a view of who your father was, but you were heavily in all of this, like to have these amazing stories. I mean, a lot of people will never be affected by what racism is, and that's the unfortunate truth. But yet still in 2023, we see that it's it's very present in our society. But to know all of that, and to know that your father sacrificed his whole being, your family's life, like he was pulled away a lot. He was probably gone more than he was there. Not to have not had his 10 babies though. It's 11 babies.
Exactly.
But so to have navigated through that, and your mother's daughter, because Miss is still here, and they built and created such a legacy. How did you manage all of these worlds from an emotional standpoint? How did you care for yourself? Once you grew up and you had to realize you had to become just Ayanna Gregory in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. I think one of the first things was that I had to recognize that there was more masking than I realized. And I listened to the honesty of close friends. I remember one of my best friends and music director, James McKinney, and he would say, Ayanna, you have this whole thing that you are on stage, and it's royal and it's powerful. And he said, and all of those things are cool. He said, but there's so much more that you are behind closed doors that the world never gets to see, and you're afraid to be those things. And it wasn't until he said that I even realized how much delayering I had to do. And because we grew up under a microscope. We
Yep.
always had a camera in our face, you know? So, you know, I learned to lie growing up in a lot of ways. And so I think just getting to a place where I could say, you know what, Ayanna, you get to be all the things that you actually are, because the creator has already seen those things. Okay. So the things that you feel are contradictory, they get to coexist. You can take the secular and the sacred and put it on the table at the same time, and you get to be all of that. Because I would just show this group this. I remember one time I was teaching. I was teaching like at an African-centered school. And so, you know, we would always dress everything super covered up, and everything was, you know, presented in a particular fashion. And I love, you know, I love being African-centered. And at the same time, there was a time where I felt like I was hiding aspects of me that I felt like I couldn't present to that world. So I remember one time I was in the mall with my friends, and we were just clowning and cutting up. And I had on like a little midriff, little crop top, stomach out. And I saw one of my students and parents. I started running.
You shrank.
Baby, I started running like, no, where my coat at? And I can't. And I was like, really, you that scared? Like, seriously? So it was like things being revealed to me, like, you get to be who you are. You went to a lecture to talk to people about wellness, and you just had a bag of Skittles. Well, talk about it. Just bring it into the conversation. Stop lying. Stop acting like you're only this one thing. Like, just let it be. Just let it breathe. And I think that process it started to feel good when I started telling on myself. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I like this. Hold up. And so it just, yeah, I started giving myself permission to just free up, you know?
I'm always, you know, because I have these girls, I'm always trying to get to the point where I can get them to understand that you can lie to a whole bunch of people, but you better be telling yourself the absolute truth. You understand? And then and only then can you feel the need not to even lie. For what? Lie for what? Here I am, unashamed. Here I am, flawed. Here I am. Just here I am. So, that delay, you know, I can imagine living in all of those worlds, presenting all these different ways, and then even taking that into your adult life and not even feeling free enough as an adult to just be an adult.
Yeah.
So thank God for that. What did you learn about yourself during the pandemic?
Wow, you know, I was trying to think about that. I was really trying to think about, what did I learn? I know there were things that I learned, because I know that for so many people, it was like, I learned that when I just stop, the world continues, and the things that I thought I had to do, I really didn't have to do. But I can't say that I learned that, because I live in a realm where that was kind of already my flow. And so I'm like,
it was already there.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, Yana, because what did you learn? I think one of the things is I learned how much I took for granted my need for physical touch and just physical connection. People, you know, I was so used to seeing faces and embracing. I'm a hugger, and you know, just I'm a person that likes to experience. You know, I mean, I like talking on the phone, but I like meeting with people and just being in the space of. And so when that thing went down, and it was just like, wow, you know, I'm seeing the mask and just seeing their eyes. That was just like, wow, I took for granted the blessing of just being able to hug a family. You know, I think that was something that was just like, wow, I didn't even think about the absence of this, because I always took for granted it would always be here.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's a good answer, because I mean, a lot of people gained some things, especially financially, and then a lot of people lost connections with people. And say you missed that physical connection. That pretty much sums it up. It's like we had to learn how to coexist without all of these things that we had just been used to. I remember once we got back out thinking, do I touch you? Do I hug you? What do we do? What are we doing now? And as much as COVID still exists, we're still like in limbo with these things. We're still trying to see like, how close do I want to be to you? How should I hug you? And should I, and that is really weird when you are a person who likes physical touch,
Right.
And I think it's either made some of us more aware of that, and it made some of us like more scared of it,
Yeah.
that's kind of, unfortunately to me, all in all, it's just a weird place. Even now, kids who still have to wear masks because they have to go home to their grandparents, and all you see is their little eyes. You can't see their expression. You can't know what they really feel. You can't know. So we're still kind of living in these strange times, but how is this season going for you in life? How is this season going?
I'm loving this season.
I know you've done a lot of traveling lately, so.
I have. In the fall of 2022, I traveled to Ghana and Benin. I was mostly in Ghana during that time. That was for about a month, and it was a beautiful experience. I was with a group of about 30 people. I was traveling with the Osset Society, and for those who don't know, it's a powerful organization that practices ancient Egyptian, ancient Kemetic way of living. And I was performing. I was alongside several other performers and our leader, who was really bringing us to different parts all over the region, in so many regions all around Ghana, to raise money for a project called Rebuild Africa, which was really about sustainable living and allowing raising money to send students from all over Ghana to a place called the Songhai Center in Benin, where this brilliant African genius created this sustainable living environment ecosystem that's being studied all over the world. And so it was really, it was powerful. It really was. I pushed my limits because, at 50, I had my 51st birthday over in Africa. That was my first time spending a birthday in Africa. But I was like, hold up, because I've been traveling for a minute, but I was like, wait, I'm not 25 no more. I can't be on these buses, planes, trains, and automobiles like this. But it was beautiful. And then it's funny because, when I think about my favorite place to visit or my favorite vacation place, everybody who knows me knows that it's Jamaica. But it's funny because I don't even really call it visiting anymore because it's become a second home. It's just become a second home. It's just my place, So I spent a lot of time there. You asked me, how is this season? This season feels very charged. It feels very electric. I'm looking at my father right now. He's looking at me. I just have to put this on the, so he's looking, daddy's just looking and so this was sitting on the counter, and I was just like, even though he's not winking, I feel like he's winking at me like, you already, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm feeling the energetic of the abundance frequency that he inspired in us. We grew up in an environment, a very non-religious, but very spiritual environment where we were, even as kids, and we didn't even understand Om and I am and all of these, just universal spiritual meditations and affirmations and prayers. We grew up in that environment. So to now live in a moment where I can call on those things at this point in my life and call on him to understand, like, wow, daddy, this abundance thing really is a frequency. When I look at money, it's like play. It's like play money. It's just like, okay, it's the energetic, it's the, you know, when I think of currency and actual currents, energy currents running through you, that we get to carry it with us. So I've been having fun. I just got back from Iowa. I was, my god sister Free, who just handles everything for me. I love her so much. She's the tech director for my one woman show, Daughter of the Struggle. And that play is about growing up as a child of the civil rights movement. So I do it all over the country. I've done it in the Caribbean as well. And so anyway, so I do it a lot on the college circuit. So I just came back from the University of Northern Iowa. It was powerful. It was just the elders in the room, the children. I find that I've been able to co-create a way of life for myself where what I love to do is what sustains me, literally and figuratively. And so I've just been having fun. I've been feeling the ancestors so strong. I've been loving on mommy, spending time with my mom, because my mom and two of my sisters and some of my cousins from Cleveland joined me in Jamaica, my last week there. So I think everybody's feeling like, yo, nothing is promised. Like, let's just live. Let's be up in each other's faces. Let's hug on each other. Let's love on each other. Where we gonna go next? And so that's how I feel like, what's next? I feel like a little girl right now, like, what's next?
I love that space. So you just discussed a little bit about your one woman show. Where are you headed to next?
I am headed to, well, I have a lot of things, a lot of Black History Month engagements here in DC, because I do a lot of schools, a lot of kindergarten through high schools. And so I do kind of like an abridged version of the play. So tomorrow I'll be going to Annapolis, Maryland, to a private school to perform for first through fourth graders. And so so that'll be fun. So I have a few engagements here in DC, and then I'll be going to Connecticut next. That'll be the next out of town gig. I'll be going to Connecticut, New York, Cleveland.
Wow.
And yeah, just moving around, just doing what I love. And
it's to LA, girl.
Yes, indeed. I am so, that was the other thing. Oh, speaking of LA, being in the play called Veils, that was the first time that I was a part of a musical. And for those who don't know, Veils is a play that is basically about the mothers of the movement, but within that, I played Trayvon Martin's mother. So it was very emotional, very intense play. That was the last time I was in LA. That was last in September. And shout out to Courtney Baker and Stephen Butler, who were the director and writer, playwright of that play. But I say that to say that it just, every time I come to Los Angeles, I feel renewed. I feel like every time I come to LA, it's a magical experience. I spend a lot of time in nature. You know, I come see you and the family, spend time with the girls, and I just feel lifted. And so I would love to, the same theater, I can't think of the name of it, the same theater that we did the musical, The Veils, is the same theater that I will likely bring my play, because I, talked to the manager there, and or one of the directors there, and she was really interested. So I can't wait, because the only time I did the play in Los Angeles was, can't remember the year, but it was the year my father got his Hollywood star. And so I did the play like around that time, and I haven't done it since. So I think it's about that time.
It is about that time. It really is. If you could have tea, because I know you're a tea drinker, not a coffee drinker. If you could have tea with anybody in the world, present, past, or a fictional character, who would you have this cup of tea with?
I would definitely say Malcolm X.
Woo!
It would have to be Brother Malcolm.
Tell me about this tea day, girl.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. I mean, outside of just the obvious reasons of him just being like, just the epitome of just beautiful, beautiful Blackness and revolution and freedom, and just Blackness, loving Blackness, and unafraid, unashamed, brilliant, just brilliant. I would get chills even as a child watching his speeches. But I think you know, I didn't get to meet a lot of the giants that were my father's peers. So Malcolm X was close with my dad. Dad was close with Dr. King, and of course he was even closer with Medgar Evers. But he, you know, there are these giants in their public form, and then they're human. And so I think because Daddy would talk about how funny Malcolm was and how shy he was when he was off camera, and just, I mean, we already knew how brilliant and beautiful he was. I guess I would have loved just the opportunity to feel his energy and just the 360 degrees human, you know, not him giving a speech, but just like to be close to him and have tea and just listen to the brother, just feel his vibration and spirit. I would definitely say Malcolm.
I feel weird because the way you're describing his tea, and I'm thinking about all of the times I would see Malcolm X or, you know, heard about him, or because, you know, he was way before my time. I would have had a crush on him.
Yes.
Like the brilliance of who he was and just the strength of, you know, the sacrifices that he made. Like
Absolutely.
that just like, I feel like off-center even saying this, like, I think I would have had a little crush on him.
I think I did. As a matter of fact, now that you're saying that, it's like it gave me permission to say the same thing. I know I did. I'm absolutely sure of it. And again,
in that house and then hearing those stories and thinking like, yeah, God, I want a husband just like that, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. What is a piece of advice that was given to you that you feel like is the best piece of advice and that you still use to this day?
I remember I was on my way to India, and I called my dad the night before I was leaving, and, you know, he's this world traveler, you know, just wise guru. And so I was like, hey, Daddy, you know, I'm on my way to India. I just want to know, is there anything you want to tell me? And he said, just remember one thing. No, he said, are you going to the Taj Mahal? And I said, oh, yes. You know, one of the great wonders of the world. And he said, yeah, one of the great wonders of the world. He said, but just remember one thing. If you don't take it with you, you won't find it there. And I was like, okay, well, how does that relate to the top? And then I was just like, you know, that Dick Gregory, it marinate. It might take you a couple of days, you know what I'm saying? Like, that Dick Gregory might take a minute. But
how long did it take you to get it?
It took me, I mean, like conceptually, it landed immediately, but I was trying to figure out the connection between like, wait, well, what does that have to do with me going to the Taj Mahal? And then I just, you know what I'm saying? I was just like, well, wait, why are you, I get it generally, but specifically. And
he wanted more. And he left it right there.
He left it right there. And I was just like, wow. I was like, oh, like, I get it. So when you're in the presence of greatness and you're marveling at something, especially something that you may be in awe of, or it means that that thing exists in you. Otherwise, you couldn't have manifested it. Period. And so that was
you can't appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, that's so good, because I'm so literal that when elders tell me things like that, I'm like, I need to elaborate. And I don't ask them that. I'm thinking that the whole time until I figure it out.
Absolutely.
So I would have been on a plane, like it would have just been going through my mind until I got it. And then when I would have it wouldn't have clicked for me though until I got there and witnessed it and then put the words together and visually saw it. So I was wondering, like, so when you receive that piece of advice and in the times that you now still use it, do you still feel it? Do you still hear it exactly the same tone? Does it still resonate the exact same way that it was given to you? And you apply it to each situation like that? Or was it just a one-time thing and then it's something that you kind of meditate on throughout? You understand where I'm going?
Absolutely. I think, to be honest with you, not only does it resonate continuously, it resonates deeper and deeper each year. You know, when you're just like, dang, there's levels to this. And so you like, oh, I get it. I get it. And then something else happens. Just like, damn, okay, daddy, okay.
And it was so simple. It was just like, if you don't, what did it say it again?
If you don't take it with you, you won't find it there.
Find it there. So
Yeah.
I could see that. I could see that resonating all the time, all the years.
Absolutely.
So passing that information on to the kids in your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just, you know, I think telling them and sharing with them is also a reminder to myself and even the child in me. You get to, and which comes to, because to me, it's really, it's a worthiness conversation, because most of us in this society have not been taught to really value ourselves and to really have a high sense of worthiness, even when we think we do. And so I think that for me, that the idea that if you don't take it with you, you won't find it there. So now another way of looking at that is like, there's sometimes when I see things outside of myself that I think are amazing, or I feel like, oh, I'm not good enough to be here, or I don't even know how I got here. And it's like, boo boo, if it wasn't for you, it wouldn't have come to you. And it doesn't come to you as much as it comes through you. So the whole of like, I can't believe I got this money. And it's like, which is why, you know, somebody can win $50 million and lose it, because the frequency was still a frequency of poverty. But if it's like, if the abundance is already coming through me, well, I can't lose it because I never lost it. So that piece, it continues to come to, I have to remind myself, because I still sometimes play this game with myself around worthiness. There are times when I still fall into a slump or say, oh, I look at what other people are doing, like, but damn, well, how did she, well, damn, well, I should be, and have that conversation with myself. And I'm like, we're not going there. And then we come back to it all connects to the whole, like the frequency, like I am my own walking frequency, that I get to embody it and be it, such that everything, every blessing that comes to me is one that was designed for me, not something where I just snuck in the door and I don't really belong here, but no. And so with that part, like, no, I brought it with me, and it was given to me from birth. So that part.
You better preach, girl.
Girl.
Which leads me to, how do you manage this self-care thing that you're going through? This self-care. I know how I've seen you manage it. You come into your home, and I just gotta tell of an experience that I had coming to your home. You come into her home, and honey, it's affirmations everywhere. And you have to read the wall out loud, and you have to embody it, and you have to feel it. And then there's the music, and then there's the incense, and then there's the teas and the ancestors' altar. How do you, Yana, even in that space, because we know that everybody has their ups and their downs, and thank God we know how to get there. So how do you get to your ups again on those down days? How do you manage?
Ooh, I would say a couple of the big things for me is when I immerse myself in Mother Nature, all is well in my world. And I'm clear about that. So I spend a lot of time in nature, and I spend a lot of time with children.
Yes.
I don't have any biological children of my own, but I surround myself with the babies. So I may go to my brother's house, my brother and sister-in-law, and see my little nieces and have them just cracking me up, or teaching me a new dance, or playing some game, or we're in the midst of, a lot of times we do these storytelling where we just create the story in the moment. And then I get caught up in a whole nother world and say, wow, look at these children, like when they get sad, because they're my teachers in that way, like watching them be in the moment and say, you worried about what happened yesterday or what hasn't yet happened. And they are already, they done left, that's gone. And they not even worrying about tomorrow. They're like, no, get this good right here. And so I love that. So being with children, spending time with children, being silly, laughing. Laughter was I'll tell you, laughter was one of the most consistent things in my house. I mean, even if we weren't really messing with each other in the house, like we was mad at, boy, I'm telling you, we could laugh our asses off and it all would be. So laughter, intentionally laughing, being with the kids, spending time in nature, setting boundaries, like that has been a really big one, because especially as Black folk and then as Black women, and we feel like we have these responsibilities and
Everybody
can quote unquote make us feel guilty about. It's like nobody can make you nothing. You know, I'm comfortable with these boundaries that I've set for myself, and I'm okay with saying no when no served me, and I'm okay with saying yes when that served me. And so I think being more comfortable, not hiding from the bound. You know, sometimes I set them, but then I'm sorry, because I'm apologizing. You don't have to do that.
yes.
So the boundary setting, I think, has been a really big part of self-care, and realizing that we can be our own medicine. Like, you know, that I do this healing work and I do sound baths. And one day it just was like, ding, 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 ding. Sing for your damn self, boo-boo, in your own living room. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I would, you know, all of these, I have all these different instruments, and, you know, like it's got this chime, and I have, you know, the singing bowls and all these things. And it's like, well, you know, before you had all that, you had your voice, sister. And so I'll put my hand on my own throat and, you know, saying things out loud and singing and just calling on the spirit, meditating. Because oftentimes I think I would be like, okay, well, let me look up a guided meditation, or let me listen to that. And those things are beautiful. So many, 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 many avenues of the teachers and guides that are out here for us. And sometimes there's a voice that's saying, you don't need to go to YouTube. Just be still and let your meditation come out. And so that has been a blessing too.
Yes. I'm just in awe. All that's been said today. That was good. That was good. How often are you meditating?
You know, I don't meditate regularly. I would say maybe like a couple times a week. But I think what happens is that I'm called to meditate throughout the week. And so that then becomes my meditation. And sometimes I don't even realize how much I need it, because sometimes I take it for granted. I'm like, yeah, you got that. And it's like, but then I'll do it for other people in the week, and I'm like, oh, you so mellow, you good, you know. I don't smoke marijuana, but I feel like in my mind, like, man, that must be like what a good joint was like. You good, it's easy. Everything is easy. You ain't worrying about nothing. So I think it ends up happening several times a week, one way or another, whether it's like just for me, or I'm doing it on Zoom, or somebody's coming over and I'm like, well, let me do this, or let me, you know, I think you look like you need some, or, you know, sometimes I'm doing group sessions that are requested. So it happens weekly, not daily, but definitely a few times a week. And sometimes it'll just be a mantra. You know, I'll just wake up, and because it's all around me and the affirmations are all around, I'll see something and I'll just start skipping, or just, you know, I'll say it out loud. Each day I wake up with a grateful heart, and so I'll just think about the things I'm grateful for, or I'll say it out loud, and won't even really think of it as a meditation, but it's there. It's just there. It's just there.
Right. It's just being in the stillness, in the space of being grateful. Yes. I think we kind of went through what you're currently working on. What's the top of the priority for like future Ayanna's goals?
Ooh.
Because I know one. I've been trying to get on my girl to do this meditation album.
Yes.
I've been
Yes.
trying to get her to do this, but it's my question, but it's also my answer. But what's your answer?
That,
Okay.
and I think, because, I'll be honest, a lot of the things that I've said I've wanted to do in the past, I really did allow lack of discipline and money conversations to be a reason why I didn't. I'm like, okay, you've been saying you wanted to do the meditation album. I want to do several different musical projects, and that one is very high up on the list. And so I would say, well, what do I need to do that? And I said, well, I got to have this, and I got to have this, I got to have this. And in the meantime, I just move on to whatever's happening in real time. And so now the space that I'm in right in this season is so exciting because, and I think I had shared this with you before, that something happened in Iowa just this past weekend. And I was like, I was having a moment with my niece Akoma, and who's 6 years old. And I was like, well, she called me, and before I think I would have been like, baby, I can't talk right now, I gotta focus. But I was like, no, let me just bring her into my moment. Mm-hmm. And she said, what are you doing, Auntie? And I was like, I'm getting ready to be on stage. And I said, you know what, maybe you could help me. I said, one of the characters I play in my play is a little girl who's 6 years old. Because I play my older sister, Lynn, who at 6 years old talks about marching as a little girl and being thrown in the police car in Chicago. And so Akoma was just intrigued, so I said, well, you're 6. So I really want to do better at sounding like a real 6-year-old. And so can you help me? And she's like, yeah, I can help you. I said, okay, so I'll get home in about a few days and I'll come and see you and we can work on it. She was like, a few days? She said, isn't your show now? Isn't it tonight? I said, yeah. She said, well, what are we waiting for? I said, well, no, I don't want you to strain your voice because I know you're not feeling, but she said, I'm fine. Girl, I had me a whole 6-year-old lesson.
Yes.
My baby girl just started rattling off the lines, and it was so powerful. And something just got up in me coming out of that, and then moved into, I felt like on stage, there was no nervousness at all. And I'm usually not super nervous, but usually there's a little bit, but I just felt so grounded. Like, wow, what is it? How is it that Akoma could be so comfortable not planning for something and just doing it in the moment? If she can do that, then I can do this with ease. And so now going back to your question, I feel like something is happening now where I'm not putting off the things that I'm inspired to do. And so I'm not overwhelming myself either with like, okay, you got 50 billion things you want to do. I'm like, I'm not worried about all that. Right now, I am inspired to let the world know about these powerful performances and in the healing works that I do. And so I'm reaching out to folks and entities and organizations and schools, and there's so many people reaching back. And I was like, dang, how come I didn't do this before? It was self-sabotage. It was like, I didn't think I was worthy. I would take 1 step forward, 10 steps backward. And I was like, okay, that's what you did before. You're not choosing that now. Now what? What are we doing now? And so it's just been fun. And so I'm just like, just keep having fun, Ayanna, and keep honoring, in fun, honor your ancestors, and be with authenticity too. Not like, well, I'm going to honor them because I feel like I'm so holy. Like, no, you be real and ask for what you need, and tell on yourself when you need to. And so I feel like now I'm just really in the moment right now, enjoying every day, feeling good. If I feel a low moment, like embracing that, honoring that, and say, you get to feel that. I mean, we are, and I'm including you, we are feelers and healers, and we are intuitors and empaths, and that ain't no easy thing. And so it's like, just, you signed up for this, baby, so just go for the ride. You know what I mean? So that meditation album is definitely coming. And I honestly feel like it's creating itself, because the meditations that I'm being called to do, girl, I have all these meditations that were created in the moment, in the spirit. I'm like, well, baby, the album is done. You just got to go into the studio now.
That's it. That's it.
That's it.
I love that you use the 6-year-old story because, you know, that famous question, what would you tell your 6-year, what would you tell your 7-year-old self?
Ooh, I would tell her that she doesn't have to try to fit into the world around her. I would tell her that. And I would tell her that her uniqueness is her superpower. Because I was really afraid of my power in a very big way. I was afraid of it. I purposely dumbed myself down because I just felt like a creature from another planet. I was like, I'm an alien. I don't know where I belong. I can't tell nobody about the thoughts in my head. I just have to pretend to be normal. And so I would definitely tell my 7-year-old self that part that I was hiding is really my superpower. Like lean into that, like just step into that and be that and just.
I love that. I love that. Wow. Okay. That's going to help a lot of little girls. They're struggling with their differences, you know? That's your superpower. God gave you that because that's your superpower.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna flip that question. What would you tell what's the conversation that you would want to have with your 80-year-old self?
Woo! I want to see how it all worked out. Let me stop. Wow. Wow. What a great question, sis. Wow. I would want to ask my 80-year-old self some questions, you know. I would want to, oh gosh, that's a really great question. I gotta think about that. What would I want that exchange to be? I would really, because I'm kind of like, I'm not torn, but it's like between what I would want to share and really just what I would want to receive from the wisdom of my 80-year-old self.
Yes.
And, you know what I mean? Just really I think there's so much curiosity I have around like, what does that final season look like for you?
Oh, no, you're creating it.
I'm creating
it.
Yes. I think that that's great. I'm glad you said that because you brought me right back on track. I think looking at my 80-year-old self would just be like, damn, okay, like looking at just like an OG, like a spiritual OG, like this is what it looked like, you know, gray locks hanging and just cool as the breeze. Like, let me tell you something, baby. Let me holler at you. I see my 80-year-old self just smiling and really like just more than anything, like laughing a lot and just like, baby girl, if you only knew how easy it was, you know, to just let go and be and let this thing called life surrender, go with the wave and really have some fun. And I could hear her saying, baby, it really don't get crack until 60. It really don't get crack. I could just see her saying like, baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. You think something happened already? Watch how it works. Watch the master work. Watch the master work. I can hear my father saying that. Watch the master work.
I love that. Well, it has been a great Soulversation with you, Ayanna. Oh my God. Thank you for being my second guest, not my second and last guest, because you will be back, I'm sure, to give us some more jewels, because you always
so much.
I love you so much. Thank you for shining your bright purple lights. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for
always say yes to you.
If I just need to vent, you're there. You give me a beautiful ear. But thank you for doing the work that you do. Thank you. Thank you for pouring into young people's lives. Like you're just such a bright spirit. And thank you for sometimes bringing me along with you. I love being in your space. I love creating space for you. And I just love you, girl. Thank
I
you
love
for
you.
being out with Soulversations with Mka.
Can I say how honored I am to be on this platform, having this conversation with you as somebody that I genuinely love in real life. And as just somebody who's just a real one. Sis, I am inspired by your, you remind me of like what my mom was like in her youth, because she wasn't moved by celebrity. She wasn't like, she was such a real one from the beginning. You know what I mean? And she just was so just that, and mom's a Sag. And there's something about when I first connected with you, I was like, oh, she's a real one. And so I feel like there are times where your honesty, your authenticity reminds me of what I can give myself permission to do when I forget, because sometimes I forget and say, no, you get to be you all the way. You don't got to dumb it down. You don't have to wait and see, is it okay to say, it's like, so I look at you and I watch you and you do it with love, and you vibrate on such a high level, and you lovingly share your wisdom. You know, if at the times where I was in stuck places, the way, you know, it may be some words that you shared, or it might be some Abraham Hicks that I needed, but whatever it was like, that's what I need in my loved ones, like the lifting, not we gonna talk about the drama, but no, you always lift me up back into me. I always feel like, okay, she reminding me of something. And so, sis, I love you. I really, really do. I love your family. I love them girls, you already know. And I just, yeah, you already know.
Thank you so much. Can't wait to see you. I love you. God bless you.
Thank you, Mama.
All right. Bye-bye.